Hello everybody and welcome back to the second shelf and to another Books Weekly, my weekly video in which I discuss the books that I've either finished from a previous week or read last week or started last week. And the first book is the book that I've finished from the previous week, and that is Elif Shafak, Three Daughters of Eve. Now, I talked a little bit already about Elif Shafak in my previous Books Weekly when I first introduced the book. So very briefly, she is a contemporary Turkish author, one of the most famous contemporary Turkish authors, I should say. She was born in 1971. She writes in English and in Turkish. And I think she wrote Three Daughters of Eve in English because I couldn't find any translator mentioned in the book, but I'm not sure. Three Daughters of Eve is a novel set in contemporary Istanbul in 2016, and we follow the main character Peri, a very wealthy Turkish housewife in her 40s, who sits in the car with her teenage daughter going to a dinner party, a very fancy dinner party. And on the way to the dinner party, something happens, and that something triggers Peri to reflect upon her past, and more specifically reflect about something that happened when she was a young student of English literature in Oxford. The friends she had there and the professor Azur where she took lessons from, and something horrible, quote unquote, happened there, and she starts to reflect. We learn through the novel what happened, and she reflects on it. So the novel is partly following Peri on the way to the dinner party in 2016 and what happens there, and reflecting about things, and the other part is back flashes. So we see Peri when she is very young, growing up with her parents and her two brothers, and we also see the time in Oxford, and we learn, like I said, what happened there. So that sounds all very interesting, and I was really looking forward to this novel because I hadn't read any Elif Shafak, and I wanted to read her for a long time. She has published multiple novels, and I didn't like it. I didn't like the book at all. And I think I really tried to think why I didn't like it. It was not so much the writing style, although I felt it was clunky at times. But my main problem with the book, that I never reached this stage of a suspension of disbelief that you need in order to really get engaged in a story, because you know it's only fiction, you're reading a story. But if it's a well-written novel, well done, then you can lose yourself in that story. And I never had that feeling. I was completely attached. I stayed attached, not attached to the story, unattached. I felt the author's presence constantly, as if she was moving the characters around like chessboard figures. Something happened during the dinner party, and it didn't feel natural what happened, but I immediately thought, oh, that had to happen because Peri now has to do such and such. The strangest feeling with this novel. So I don't know, maybe I will reread it in a couple of months to see whether it was just my mood that triggered this weird non-attachment. And I will certainly try out another book by Elif Shafak to see whether it's maybe just a one-off with this particular book. I don't know. If you read Three Daughters of Eve, because a lot of people really loved it, let me know. Or if you read any other book by Elif Shafak, let me know what you think of her books. But this one just didn't do it for me. Oh, and by the way, I wanted to mention that Elif Shafak is also one of the judges in this year's Man Booker International Prize. I will leave a link to the Man Booker International website down below. You might know, last time The Vegetarian by Han Kang won the prize. It's a very prestigious prize where books translated into English can compete for the best international book. The long list will be announced on the 15th of March. So if you're interested in translated fiction, in fiction from other countries you might normally not encounter, go check it out. And we will, in the Goodreads group, in the Man Book Ring group, we will read the long list and the short list, and we'll discuss the books, which is always, every year. It's really great fun, so you should check it out, and if you want to, you should join. And on to the second book, and that was Claire Fuller, Swimming Lessons. The book was just published, I think, on the 7th of February by Tin House Publishing in the UK, and I received the book through NetGalley. By the way, if you are not a member of NetGalley, you should be, because it's a really fantastic way of getting new releases even before the release date, and you can, you know, send in your reviews and your feedback. I think it's a fantastic service that publishers have books available for reviews, and not only for, you know, the standard reviewers from the Washington Post or the New York Times or something, but just for us interested readers and booktubers. So you if you are not yet a member of NetGalley, you should really consider becoming a member. But anyway, I'm digressing. Back to Swimming Lessons. Claire Fuller is a young British author. You might have heard about her first book, Our Endless Numbered Days, which was published in 2015 and received a lot of praise. I have to admit, I hadn't read it. I was planning on reading it, and then I didn't. So Swimming Lessons was my first book by her. The book is set in contemporary England, in Dorset, and we have Gil Coleman, literature professor, whose wife has mysteriously disappeared some 12 years ago, and he's in a bookstore when the book opens, and he thinks he sees his disappeared wife Ingrid walking on the beach, and he tries to follow her, and then he has an accident. And because of this accident, the two daughters, Nan and Flora, have to come to his sickbed, and the story develops from there. So that is one part. And the other part is, we as readers can read letters that Ingrid sent to her husband, or wrote to her husband, just before the disappearance. Letters reflecting on the marriage, but also telling him what happened, and obviously Gil isn't even there, and we don't know why he isn't there, and where he is, and what happened. And slowly through those letters we learn more about the marriage, and we also learn what happened to Ingrid 12 years ago. And intertwined with that is the present day, when the two girls, Flora especially, we see things from her point of view. She never really believed that her mother was dead, and how she deals with this illness of her father after he tried to chase Ingrid, or at least some woman he thought was Ingrid. So it's partly a family calamity history with the two now grown-up daughters and the father, and for a large part it's Ingrid's story. I don't know, I read in some reviews or blurbs that it's a page-turning thriller. I wouldn't say that, and you might be disappointed if you go into the book expecting a suspenseful, page-turning thriller trying to find out what happened to Ingrid. It's much quieter than that, and it's much more a character study of, and a study of marriage, a study of the relationship between a father and his daughters, and the past that haunts Gil because of failures in the marriage. I mean, there is some suspense because you want to know what happened to Ingrid, and you will learn it towards the end. But that's not why you should read the book if you want to read it. I thought it was beautifully written. It was, like I said, very quiet, character-driven book, and I really, really enjoyed it. So I can highly recommend it if you are interested in these kind of more quiet stories where there is some hidden suspense, but it's not plot-driven. It's much more a character-driven novel. But like I said, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a good book. And the next book I've read is also a new release. It will come out mid-March, and that's Susan Perabo's The Fall of Lisa Bello. This is an ARC, as you can see here, which was kindly sent to me by Steve over at Steve Donahue's. And if you are not yet subscribed to his channel, you don't know what you're missing. So you have to check him out. Susan Perabo is now, I think, she's an American contemporary writer, and I think she's now most well known for her short story collection. Her last short story collection came out last year, but she has published a previous novel, Broken Places, in 2001. So it's been a while, and I was really interested. I love her short stories, so I was really interested to read her new novel. The Fall of Lisa Bello follows a 13-year-old girl called Meredith, who is a little overweight, a little not happy in high school, not one of the popular girls. Lisa Bello is the popular girl. There's also some family difficulties because Meredith's older brother was really good at baseball. A couple of months ago had a horrible accident, lost his eye, can't play baseball anymore. So the family situation is already a little troubled. But the story really opens when Meredith, after school, goes to a sandwich shop where Lisa is also in the shop. The two girls don't speak to each other. They just order their sandwiches, and then a robbery happens. A masked man enters the store, holds the owner at gunpoint, robs the cash, knocks down the owner, and forces one of the two girls, Lisa, to go with him. And Lisa disappears. So the one big part of the story is Meredith trying to cope with what happened, trying to cope with the fact that she survived, that she was not taken, that she was unharmed, and she copes in a way that she, as if it was real, she imagines what had happened to Lisa, to the point even where she imagines that she had been taken together with Lisa, that they both had been taken. So the big part of the story is Meredith's struggle to cope with the robbery. Another part of the story, a different point of view, is the point of view of Claire, of the mother. And there we learn about the history, what happened in the past, what happened to the brother, but also her attempts to help her daughter. She and her husband are both dentists. We learn a little bit about that and how they met. And if you hear me tell you that, you probably already know or can imagine what my biggest problem was with the book, even though I enjoyed it and it was very well written and I didn't want to put it down. I wanted to read on. But my problem was that I, in the end, thought it was just too much. Too many stories and nothing to hold them really together. There was, in my view, a lack of focus. Each story, the story of the brother with the horrific accident, would have been enough to tell in a novel. The point of view of the mother, how she deals with the problems of her children, how she deals with marriage and work, would have been enough for a novel. And the story of Meredith, how she deals and copes and tries to cope with Lisa's abduction, would have been enough. But everything together, yeah, like I said, even though it was not a bad book, I might sound overcritical, it was certainly not a bad book, but I thought it was just too much. And I wonder whether this new thing of having always multiple points of views, of having always stories layered upon stories, layered upon stories. Maybe that's just not for me. Maybe I'm just simple-minded and I just want one protagonist and his or her point of view, and I want an in-depth, development of character and plot. So I don't know. If you read Lisa Bellow, let me know what you thought of it. But for me, it was not the perfect read, unfortunately. And then, just very briefly, because the video is again me waffling and going on and on, much too long. Very briefly, the book that I will start, or just have started, and that's Margaret Combs' Hazard. It's a new release on March. Also a book I requested and received from NetGalley because I thought the story sounded interesting. It's a memoir, Margaret Combs' retelling of her growing up in the 50s and 60s in a rural neighborhood in the United States, and a brother with autism, a younger brother born with autism. And I thought that sounded really interesting, so I'm looking forward to reading that. This was it. Long Books Weekly. I hope you've enjoyed it nevertheless. Leave your comments if you want to. I'm always happy, as you know, to talk to you in the comments. And thank you very much for watching, and I will see you all again soon. Bye-bye.